Good morning, everybody, and happy Shinny, happy Pride Month. I've got my Pride socks on today. I'm Jim Mutton. I'm the Associate Executive Director of New York City Operations at Concern. And a couple of months ago, Joelle and Cynthia asked us to come think about doing a presentation on staff appreciation and support. Last year, our Executive Director, Ralph Fasano, presented on some staff appreciation activities that we were doing, and it was a hit. So I was like, do you really want us to come back and kind of do this glossy thing again? And it was a tough decision because we're going through tough times, right? We don't have a COLA in our city budget right now. We had 50 executives sleeping outside a city hall in the rain because the budget is so woeful. The idea of how we hold on to staff, attract new staff, it's getting tougher and tougher. But I thought about it and I was like, you know what? We do need to have that conversation. We do need to think about how we can work with our workforce, help groom our workforce, help people stay with us and have careers with us. And we need to think about doing that in ways that don't necessarily cost a ton of money because we don't have a ton of money. We have some funds from the state, which we're very, very grateful for and continue to see that. So maybe there's a budget handshake today and there'll be good news at the end of the day. Let's certainly hope so. So I'm delighted to, here's just a slide about what we're going through, right? So I'm delighted to have 5 of my esteemed colleagues with us today who are going to talk to you a little bit about some work that we've been doing around supporting staff, also about embracing diversity, equity, and inclusion, and putting that to the forefront of what we do. And finally, our critical incident stress management initiative, which is an opportunity and a way to respond to emergencies and incidents in our sites and how we can support staff, knowing that all we go through leads to a level of vicarious trauma that we end up taking home. So I'm delighted to be joined by Matt Mangiapan. He's a director of our Liberty Landing Veterans Program on Long Island. He also heads up some of our employment work. And Karen Taylor to his right, our Deputy Director of New York City Operations, an all-around badass. Welcome, Karen. My compadre, Robin Smith over there, our Associate ED of Long Island Operations. We have Bill Chidsey, our Program Supervisor from our Surf Vets Place Veterans Program in Coney Island in Brooklyn. And last but not least, Donna Parker, Program Director from our East Patchogue CRSRO. And both Bill and Donna are co-chairs of our DEI committee at Concern, which we're going to tell you a little bit about. So we're an interesting agency because we're split between Long Island and New York City. We started out Central Islip over 50 years ago. We're pretty old at this point. But over the past 11, 12 years, we've been doing a lot of housing also in New York City. So we're becoming more of a geographically mixed agency, which we'll show you. Our mission essentially is to provide housing and services that enrich lives and strengthen communities. Everybody deserves a place to call home. And we're a housing agency. That's what we do. We do supportive and affordable housing. So we have, I think, about 400 employees right now, and at any given time, we have 50 vacancies. And this is part of our crisis, right, is trying to fill those vacancies, trying to attract new staff. And we keep at it, but it seems like this revolving door of opportunities. That being said, we hold on to a lot of staff. We've got many staff who have been with us for years and are building their careers with Concern. We have about 275 sites now. over 1,750 apartments, and I think all told about 2,000 adults, 250 kids that we serve in permanent supportive housing and transitional housing. We've got about 650 units in development, and this year we're opening a couple of new programs in New York City, in Brooklyn, and the Bronx. So Karen and I are very busy back-to-back finding staff, finding tenants, and then opening programs. So you can see we've got all kinds of different buildings. We've got 1 and 2 family homes in suburban Long Island. We've got single site, big buildings that we've built from the ground up, and also some homes, some adult homes that we renovated into supportive housing. So there's a whole mix of different types of housing. So what we're going to touch on today, as I mentioned, are just 3 aspects of how we're supporting staff and providing ongoing ways for people to feel embraced, to nurture their careers. So Robin's going to start us off. We're going to talk a little bit about the efforts that we've been doing with employee recognition and staff appreciation. We're then going to talk a little bit about our diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. And then finally, our CISM team, which is the Critical Incident Stress Management Program, the self-care and program support that we provide there. We'll take some questions along the way if you want to interrupt us, and then we'll also save time at the end. So welcome. I also want to give a shout out to all the concerned employees in the room, and thank you for joining us. So Robin, over to you, and we can stay at the table if you prefer.
Oh, yeah. I'm emotional support here. You heard that? Yeah. That's the clicker. Yeah. Is this on? Can you hear me? Yes. I know. Christine's like, yes, you're right in my face. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. It's good to see you all. We're going to start off with, like Jim said, recognition and appreciation. And I think try to work this at the same time. If we look at recognition and appreciation, I think what we want to be mindful of is to be sure to extend this and express this outwardly, because when we think about recognition, we could make a mental note about, look at that, the good service provision by that program, excellent work by that staff member, and we could think about that. But it's really important, and we try to focus on making sure we're extending that and expressing that outwardly. And the same with appreciation. That could be a feeling of gratitude, a feeling of admiration. So again, we really try to focus on ensuring we're expressing that outwardly. And that's one of the things, we pride ourselves on. And like Jim mentioned, it's a work in progress. We're always trying to be creative and think about new ways to do that. So I have to remember to press this as I go now. Okay. Concerned Housing, I came to the agency in 2009. It has always been a staff-centered agency, as staff-centered as we have been client-centered. But it became even more important post-COVID-19 to ensure we were expressing heartfelt appreciation, gratitude, and recognition to our staff. Because, as we all know, in 2021, it's been coined the Great Resignation. We saw 47 million Americans voluntarily leave the workforce. Can everybody hear me in the back? I should have asked that. Can you hear me in the back? Okay. This was unprecedented, and Concern was no stranger to this. And, ironically, we were bracing ourselves in 2020, the height of the pandemic. There was so much unknown, the fear, of course, the illness. And with our many, many congregate sites, just our many sites across the board, we were trying to plan and get ahead of what will this look like? What if our staff don't come? What if our staff don't stay engaged? What if a client tests positive or multiple clients test positive? Will staff come? Lots of planning, lots of preparing as best we could, thinking about what that would look like. We placed an RV at one of our congregate sites, thinking that could house some, COVID positive clients, and really just trying to think ahead as much as we could. But not only did our staff stay in place in 2020, they performed at extraordinary levels, providing the utmost care and support to our clients. We were talk about appreciation and grateful and gratitude. So come 2021, we were taken a little aback, like everybody else in this industry and many others, to see the Great Resignation. So despite all of our efforts at staff appreciation and recognition, we still had staff leaving the workforce. People were making different decisions for their lives and for themselves. As a result, we really recognized that we had to ramp up our efforts at staff appreciation. And we really thought about focusing on establishing a culture of care and recognition and appreciation. So really making it a concern always focused on staff, but really making it part of the culture. And we've put a lot of effort into doing that, and it's always ongoing. We're always assessing, trying to see what else, asking staff for feedback. How can we get creative, and how can we support, recognize, and really show appreciation for our staff. So I'm just going to go through some of the ways we're doing that at Concern. One example is the Concern Chronicle. This is a monthly newsletter. It goes out agency-wide via email. And we had this before COVID, but it fell off a little bit. But we've really made an effort since COVID to put this newsletter together monthly. There's a lot of tidbits in the newsletter. We try to highlight an individual staff member or a program or department. If we highlight an individual staff member, there's a little blurb about them, the good work they're doing, who they are, and we extend them a $100 gift card. And then we've highlighted some programs. For example, supported housing was recently highlighted, and we sent them to the Long Island Ducks game. We had a couple of suites for that game. Property management was highlighted recently, and I think they took a trip out to Dave & Buster's. And I think we just try to support that as much as we can, because the whole goal is to build those connections back. A lot of connections were lost during COVID, Zoom and distancing, and Concern is built on relationships. So we recognize the importance of working to connect people again, to connect the regions, like Jim said. We have many programs on Long Island, many programs in New York City. How do we connect our staff? How do we keep that connection going? And the newsletter is one of those ways. Staff put recipes in there. The DEI committee has a little corner in there. Staff send pictures. And that's been really successful, and we've been staying on top of that chronicle every month. We also encourage programs and departments to engage in team building activities, and we support them in doing so. For example, I think Donna took her team bowling. I think one of our Long Island directors, they went to Top Golf, which I've heard raves about on Long Island. I haven't been there, but I've heard good things about that. And then luncheons, like I know some of our committees. I think we have a QI committee, and I think they went out to lunch. And some of the committees go out and just spend some time together outside of the workplace, connecting, getting to know each other a little bit better. And we support those efforts. Post-COVID, we connected to MMP consulting. Post-COVID, we really had to kind of get our feet under us again. get back to looking at usual operations as much as we could, so our focus was there. So we connected to MMP, and they kind of helped us reorganize our efforts around staff recognition and staff appreciation and kind of refocus us on that. For example, we had Pay It Forward cup of coffee. So this was an email. I think it was, I can't remember exactly what it was called, but it was a Dunkin' Donuts coupon for coffee, and a staff member would recognize or send an email, say, I think you deserve a cup of coffee, and then you would pay it forward, and you could cash in the coupon and get a cup of coffee at Dunkin' Donuts. So that went around the agency via email. We have a lot of ticket and raffle giveaways, and some sporting events, so the Knicks, the Nets, the Mets, the Long Island Ducks, which is a great Long Island venue. And then we've had some Broadway show raffles, Christmas Spectacular, Waitress, so some shows. And then, people put their name in for the raffle. And then oftentimes they bring a family member to the show, a family member to the game. They send us pictures. We're putting that in the newsletter. That's going in email. Connecting everybody. So New York City staff will meet Long Island staff there, and they'll sit together. And we made a conscious effort to let everybody know, oh, here's who's going, so you could connect if you wish when you're there. Really trying to focus on the connections and just, again, fun outside of the workplace and lifting your head outside of that workplace for a bit. I have some pictures you'll see. We sponsor some agency events. This is for a more energetic and athletic staff. We sponsor a lot of runs, and we'll give T-shirts, or we have the Stop the Stigma run, the Michael Murphy run around the lake. That's Lake Ronkonkoma, I believe. The Odyssey House run, EOC 5K for Fighters run, and then advocacy rallies. And then I think we see fewer people in these pictures when they come out from staff, but staff get together, sometimes even on the Saturday, and coming out for a good cause, and we support that and encourage that. We focus on training opportunities, and I think this was something we heard on the initial welcome message too, the importance of training opportunities for staff, to support staff. This has always been a focus for concern. We've always supported staff who are interested, if they identify an external training, they're interested in enhancing their skill set, build their proficiency in an area, they run it by their supervisor, and within reason, we try to approve whatever we can to that end. We have a FIT committee, and the focus of the FIT committee is really kind of focusing on the co-occurring disorders. Clients are coming in with more substance use diagnoses than ever. So we recognize that our focus predominantly is mental health. So we're trying to work together on this committee to figure out what resources can we bring in for staff? How can we become better educated as an agency on this? What trainings can we offer? How can we help staff feel more confident in this arena? So one of the things we did on this committee was we partnered with CPI, Center for Practice Innovations, and they had a 16-hour IMHAT course, which was focused on substance use. And we said to staff, if you're interested and you want to complete that 1600 course, we'll give you a gift card. So a little bit incentive for them to do it, but then it also helps them build proficiency, builds their portfolio, and I think we had a good deal of success with that program. We also have a staff training committee, and this committee has been in operation for a while now. And this committee sends out survey monkeys to staff. So we ask staff, what do you need? What would you like to see? What trainings do you feel would be helpful in your role overall? And then we'll look to either develop the curriculum for that or secure an outside speaker to present for staff. Sometimes we identify trends. So a few years back, K2 was really, it was just coming on the radar for us. And we did our own research, the committee, trying to, learn as much as we can about it, and presented that out to the agency. It was a trend we were identifying. So that's another, just staff have a say and they have a voice, and we try to present what they're looking for and what they feel they need. The connections. I mean, you can't. The whole point of this is the connections, the relationships, the team building, the appreciation. The keynote speaker talked about love. So we want to express the appreciation to staff, and we recognize our staff. We call them rising stars, who are excited about our mission, embracing it, promoting it, positive, enthusiastic. And we try to recognize them and show appreciation to them, and show commitment to their growth, and hoping they stay with us in the agency. And we invite them to, we invited them to the management symposium at Saratoga Springs. We invited them to Sagamore. And they just got to, be with a team that they probably wouldn't have, Long Island, New York City team. And I think they had such rave reviews over that, so we're going to continue to try to do that. Am I keeping up with my slides, Jim? Okay. We have a Spark program, and this program, it runs year-round. It's a special performance, achievement, recognition, and commendation. This runs year-round. Employees send an email. They nominate a colleague for the Spark Award. They give a little blurb about them, talk about who they are, what they're doing, why they deserve it. And then all of the nominees are gathered at the end of the year, and we present $250 gift cards to the winners at our holiday party. We have an annual holiday party at the Garden City Hotel, and we present 10 to 12 winners with $250 gift cards. Their paragraph is read. It's a surprise for them, and that's just a wonderful event, and that's been really, really successful program. We have a staff development committee. Of late, this committee, we've noticed, is focusing a lot on activities that could bring both regions together. We have representation. We try to have representation from each program or department on the committee. And they bring forth concerns or questions general about the agency, but oftentimes they're looking to do things. So recently we had a meeting. They talked about roller skating, more athletic, more energetic staff, a charter boat for fishing, sailing around Manhattan, field day at Heckscher or one of the Eisenhower parks. So they're talking about activities that will bring us together, fun outside of the workplace, connections, and it's a way for us to show appreciation and recognition to the staff. So that's a work in progress. They're still talking to each other, and we're going to figure out what at least one of those things, perhaps one on Long Island, one in the city. So that's really been a great forum for staff to come and talk to the executive team present and share ideas. We try to be as supportive as possible with their ideas within reason. We have wellness incentives. We had an Apple Watch giveaway. We had an Apple Watch giveaway. We had health and fitness tips in the newsletter, healthy recipes. We try to focus on physical health and mental health too. I don't know that many people went for that Apple Watch giveaway, but we did. Yeah. We have scholarships. So we have the Lindsay Davis Scholarship. This was in honor of a staff member who passed about 10 years ago, and we award up to $1,000 for any of our staff who are obtaining their license or certification or renewing it. So we look to reimburse that for them. And then we have an annual scholarship program, and we award between $1,000 to $1,500 to staff who are pursuing their education. And there are no length of service requirement for that. The supervisor supports that nomination. And then more recently, we have the Educational Assistance Program, and this is for staff who are working towards their graduate degree. There's no length of service requirement here, but this is more of a loan. So we'll loan up to $4,000, and we do request and require that they stay committed to us for 2 years. If they exit our workplace within, before then that would have to be paid back. But if they stay with us, that loan is forgiven. I have some pictures. So here's an example of some of the pictures our staff share, and they're with their family members in the city, out on Long Island. The bottom is one of our committees having a luncheon. Ducks game, Knicks game, just some fun times. Some more Mets, there's our little group of athletic staff, the runs. I think that's waitress, bowling. It's just so great to see staff having fun and connecting outside of the workplace and supporting them in this way. Lion King, some more bowl games. What's that middle one? Some more runs. Yeah, and there's the Odyssey House run. There you are, Jim. Here's where we brought our rising stars to Saratoga, Sagamore. It's a great time. I think we have at least 30 staff here today at this conference, too. 32, thank you. Of course, whenever we can, we know, like Jim indicated originally, just the human service industry overall. We recognize the need. We recognize the cost of housing for our staff, the cost of living for our staff. So, of course, in addition to all of those, we work to increase salaries. We extend bonuses as much as possible. We are extending the 4% COLA. We're extending that retro to January this year. So, and one of the, I hate to say, like Jim mentioned, we have 50 staff vacancies, and one of the upside of that, if you could call that, is we really try to use those funds and spread it amongst the staff that are with us. So that's one of the things we get to do as we work hard to fill those vacancies. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Robin. So you may be wondering how you pay for some of that stuff, right? The MMP is very good at getting discounted tickets to events. There's also ways to roll in board member contributions to a specific activity or scholarship. The Saratoga reference that we made, that's another trade association, the Association for Community Living, which represents supportive housing providers statewide. So they have a membership meeting every spring at Saratoga Springs. They also have a great conference in the fall. Not to rival Shinny, but it's a different type of experience. So we've got some questions in the back. I'm going to come by with a mic if it's easier, or we've got one in the middle. Okay.
Can you please tell me what the acronym MMP actually stands for? I'm looking up and I can't find it. There's a lot that comes up.
Ralph, do you know the...
It's the initials of the founder of it. Her name is Michelle, and she has 2 last names.
Okay. Thank you so much.
We can certainly get you that information, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Please.
I just want to share with all the information that you were given. Like, I didn't know that y'all do all that stuff. That is amazing. And it's good that, y'all reach out to the staff and do these events and stuff and show
Okay.
And it's a blessing.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you
Oh,
Thank you for that. Yeah.
yeah, thank you.
for
Yeah, yeah.
I wish I did a good job.
It's
Thank
never
you.
too late. We're not here to shamelessly plug our vacancies,
Right.
but they're all on the website.
Concernhousing.org.
Yeah. Yes, Bonnie.
Sorry, I was just wondering, the team activities, are those happening on work time? And how do you balance kind of covering services in your programs?
Yeah, I mean, and that's a good point. You know, some of the activities are Saturdays. The shows, of course, and the games are in the evenings. Some of the outings are during the workday. So it's a matter of coverage. Do we have coverage? Can we get per diem staff in? If all of the staff can't go, how do we recognize the other staff? It's constantly being creative, thinking outside the box, and making sure we're including everybody. Inclusion, and we, you know. I think we do a good job of that, Donna. You did bowling with your team, right? And you had coverage. Yeah. Yeah. So it's a mix. It's during the work, it's outside of work, it's weekends, it's evenings.
A lot on our own time. I mean, the Odyssey House run another great agency. You know, they do this 5K every year on Randall's Island. And, you know, you can bring your family, your kids. They have races for children. Yeah, it's just a real inspiring way to get staff together and do something different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a question. When it comes to figuring out what your staff are interested in doing in terms of activities, what's kind of techniques that you use to really get a pace on what your staff will really appreciate or would like to be included in some of these activities?
Yeah, I think we do. Yep, we do. So we do staff surveys. We'll throw out some survey monkeys. What are you looking for, whether it's trainings or activities, and just ask for feedback across the board, across the agency. And then also the staff development committee, they meet, the group, the representatives from all the programs and departments meet prior to meeting with us on the executive team, and they already have formulated all their ideas about roller skating and all of the activities. So just a lot of asking them, what are they looking for? What would they find?
I also have a follow-up question.
Sure.
How do you get that fit in around the budget? Did you budget for this in a given, right before the fiscal year starts, do you budget for these kind of activities? Or how do you go grasping to make this kind of staff appreciation or how limited sometimes the budgets can be?
Yeah, it has to be within reason, right? So sometimes like the programs, like Donna went bowling, this isn't something that's happening all the time, happening every month. There's other types of activities that are happening in the programs, for instance, like a celebration for Juneteenth, which is a much smaller scale event, or Black History Month, or Pride Day. So
Just staff appreciation for our individual sites. We also do staff appreciation for our individual sites too. You know, so it's about that one program director providing coverage and figuring out how to make sure that the staff are able to enjoy it, but we also have the support on site at the programs.
And we do, you know, discuss with the staff development committee. I think they brought us a trip that was like $24,000 or something. We're like, that's, you know, that's not possible. But we try to, you know, give them a little parameter on what would be feasible for like a once-a-year trip to bring the teams together, New York City and Long Island teams together. So, yeah, it has to make sense for the budget. It has to make sense for, you know, for what the programs are doing. So it's within reason. It's according to what our funding will permit, our budget permits, all the above.
So one more question over here, and then we'll move on to DEI. Was there somebody on this side? Yeah.
I just had a question about how large your agency is, like how many staff, and are these events by program or agency-wide?
We have about 400 staff. Or do we have 400 right? About 400 right now. We try to do both. We try to do agency-wide. So we have our like annual holiday party in Garden City. That's open to everybody, of course. Sites need coverage, so that's, you know, something that has to be worked on, and that's open to agents, you know, the whole entire agency. We'll do a lot of trainings. We open it up to the whole agency. We do wellness retreats, some of the things we open up to everybody. And then some things are just program specific. Some of the directors drive those activities in their program and for their staff. They talk to their staff. You want Top Golf, somebody wanted bowling, and then they make that happen.
Great, thank you so much. And now we're going to move on to diversity, equity, and inclusion, another way to embrace and support staff by recognizing differences and making sure that we're all on the same page with that, embracing our own differences, our own stigmas, our own understandings. So turning over to Matt and Karen, thank you so much.
No, Bill and
Oh,
Donna.
Bill and Donna, sorry.
It's okay. She panicked.
I'm moving ahead.
She panicked for a minute.
We're a very diverse staff.
Good morning. Can everyone hear me?
Pull it forward.
I don't think it works.
No, you're
Is that better? Maybe this isn't.
Does yours work, Bill?
Hello?
Yes.
This one works.
Okay.
We'll share.
Okay. Good morning. Okay, so I'm just going to move this over here. So, back in 2021, I'm sure all of you can remember, that was during the pandemic. But prior to the pandemic, we had a few things that happened, or one major thing that happened. Thank you, Ralph. Okay. So one of the major things that happened was the murder of George Floyd. So on the heels of that, I'm sure we all heard a lot about different companies starting their DEI initiative and recognizing that these things need to be spoke about and talked about. Shortly after that, we had the January 6th incident. So in starting the committee, we had a lot to begin with and recognize everyone's differences and things of that nature. So we presented our mission statement to our board of directors, and our statement is to promote an organizational culture that embraces individuality through policies and practices of equality, inclusion, diversity, and accessibility for all. So with that being said, we have and had the backing of our board of directors. So whatever we attempt to do, want to do, we definitely know that they are on board with driving our agency in the right direction.
So I think one of the things that also the COVID pointed out to us was what happens when you take a system and shut it down. You find out who is able to survive and who isn't. So now you've got people out of work, just externally, and you're looking at who can afford to live without work. And you see the inequities, and you see what happens. So part of our work internally is to look at our agency, who's committed to making things better and more equitable, and seeing the ways that we can do that. And one of the things where you begin is interesting, because this is sort of an evolution. It's not written in stone. I don't think that there's a lot of paths to go down when you're creating something that is looking at things that are multi-layered, that is looking at things that are systemically entrenched, that are looking at things that you don't even know exist because you don't know who is experiencing something different than you. So we started in our discussions by forming this committee and started listening to one another. And part of what we did was initially tell each other some stories about who we were, how we come to this agency, how we come to experience the world, and what our understanding of things are. So just educating one another was a beginning, opening our own eyes. Part of we're attempting to disseminate the information, the message, the ideas across the agency to include everybody as much as possible. And we do have the DEI corner, which is in the Chronicle, which Kira does a wonderful job of putting out. And every month there's a profile of who we're celebrating that month, who may not have had a voice, who may not have been recognized. I mean, this month we have Pride Month, we have Juneteenth, and we want to, every month, take a moment and give someone a voice, a picture, recognition that you may not know because you're different. You may not know that this person is celebrating or should be celebrated. So we highlight that. We also do some stories in there. We do book recommendations, movie recommendations, links to educational information that people can find out. Oh, I didn't know about that. What is that? Let me go find out. So I think that every month we do a great job in bringing the idea of others to the agency and the staff. We also ask the staff, what is it that is going on with you that you would like to see? What is your experience? So we did a staff survey, and through that we got more information to find out how do we make everything more diverse, more equitable, more inclusive, and how do we know what we don't know? We also worked with human resources, and we said, maybe there are, in our discussions, maybe there are ways to reach communities when we're advertising for jobs that don't even know we exist. So how can we reach out and touch them and say, you're welcome here? And so human resources did a wonderful job to expand their posting of jobs in diverse networks, and we're constantly looking for ways to reach those people, to let them know of the jobs that are open, and they can come and work with us, and they're welcome. Internally, we looked at what are people thinking? Who are they? And one of the ways we ask them to think about themselves is just how they define themselves. And you're not just a worker, you're someone. Who are you? And so in our emails, there's a whole list of pronouns that you can choose from, and all are acceptable. Choose who you are. Choose who you want to be. Your identity is something that we want to know. We want to hear from you. We want to see you. You are not invisible. And that was when we changed the pronouns in the emails, and people get to choose, and they get to tell each other, this is who I am. This is my truth. This is how I exist. I think I talked about the special diversity days that we had throughout the year, and Robin talked a lot about the different activities in different buildings that support these ongoing holidays or special events. And we have some wonderfully creative people who come up with terrific ideas to celebrate in their buildings with their tenants and their staff. And we also do the staff satisfaction survey, a resident satisfaction survey, and also one of the things that we wanted to know is if you're going to leave us, is there anything related to diversity, equity, inclusion that you are maybe thinking about, that you were troubled by, that you had a thought about? So we want to know that even though you're going, how can we use your experience with us to make us better? So I think those are some of the ways that we began, in addition to creating some safe spaces. Donna?
Yes. I just wanted to go back to something Bill talked about. So the special diversity days, at least in my building, and I know other buildings too, I blast it really loud in my building. So anytime I can bring in my staff and the residents in my building to do some education around Juneteenth, Pride, Black History Month, Spanish Heritage Month, whatever I can celebrate, I celebrate with my staff and my residents. My staff meetings consist of monthly a game, but the game is always more of an icebreaker to find out more about my staff. So before I did bowling, I already knew that at least 7 people on my staff love bowling. I think in the diversity, equity, and inclusion bubble, it's about getting to know people and accepting people. So if you don't get to know someone, then it's easy to exclude them from something. So the more you know, the more you grow, as they say. So now I'm speaking on, some of the things that we've done as an agency. Our main office bathroom, we made it gender neutral. So I remember being in the main office at times and waiting until I can go to this bathroom. So now it's gender neutral. We display safe space signs. So in displaying those signs, you as an individual, you have to create that space for your staff and your residents as well. It's nice to say that you have a safe space, but provide that safe space. So Bill talked about the email signature. We did that. And in one of our annual Christmas party, we did an icebreaker. I think one was finding someone who spoke more than just one language. So you actually had to go to other people to say, hi, I'm Donna. I only speak English, but what do you speak? And there were some prizes at the end of that. We are also working to integrate peers and residents. We have peer staff, and some of them actually live with us. So we're doing a lot to incorporate them, to include them, to make them not feel that they're any different than we are. We all work with the same agency.
Another thing we wanted to do was to give people voices and to have people hear different voices other than ones they might normally hear. So we've scheduled a number of guest speakers, and we've had some agency-wide trainings. We've had understanding culture, identity, and bias, what's a microaggression, creating safe and braving spaces for better communication. We've had ASAP's Justice DEI Virtual Summit, LGBT Network Workplace Summit, Erase Racism, LGBT Network Workplace Training, and we've had people come and speak to us about their experiences and who they are and what's going on. And hopefully people will get the message that there's another world other than the one that you understand that exists. And we can just listen, and we can take it in, and we can see how it fits in with our concept of the world. So the more education we have, the more trainings we have, and the more visibility we have, it starts to seep in, I think, to everybody that this is a place that could be safe for people, which is a new concept for people who are marginalized, for people who have had other experiences. And as a staff, how we are with each other and then how we are with the tenants that we house is really important, because that message needs to filter down to them, that this is a safe place for you after being on the street, after being homeless, after having economic hardships, after being deserted by your family or friends, feeling abandoned by everybody. This is a safe space for you to live in, and this is a safe space for you to work in.
And again, I think we do what we do to allow people to be authentically who they are, to come to work and be who you are, because you get the best work from someone who's comfortable in their role. So now we'll talk about, we are working on a DEI resident / tenant committee. So our hope is to bring in the tenants that we serve, that they also have a voice in decisions that we make. We work with them, so it's nice to know what they're really thinking. Sometimes it may not be a good fit, or just things that they would like to talk about. If someone made them feel a certain way, what can we do as an agency to make our tenants feel included? So that's still in the works. I guess I can continue.
I think this slide is really just about our goals. And our goals continue to be to foster diversity in housing for our tenants, foster diversity among our staff, and that's reflective of who they are and who we serve, allowing our tenants and residents to share the experience, their differences, to embrace their individuality, again, to make it a safe space for them to finally flourish and thrive. Promote a living environment in which it promotes overall well-being and a sense of belonging instead of a sense of isolation and fear. A sense of community is what we're hoping for and working towards.
So this committee is, like I said, still in the works. And it will be through New York as well as Long Island. So that is the goal, to have it intertwined, weave together. Yeah.
I think we covered what we do.
Yeah, exactly.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bill and Donna. Before we move on to our last section, any DEI-related questions people might have or interested in knowing more about? Also wanted to give you a number for that MMP people we talked about earlier. If anyone wants to write this down, or I can give it to you at the end of the presentation. Michelle Markisak, Marcisak. She's the president of MMP, and her phone number is 917-501-5696. That's 917-501-5696. Great. So now we're truly moving on to Karen and Matt, who are going to talk about our critical incident stress management initiatives.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me? Everything's good? Perfect. Okay. Good. And I can work this. That's perfect. So, good morning. I hope everybody is doing well this morning. We are here for our critical incident stress management team at Concern. We have a little bit we're going to go through, so I suggest you take a sip of coffee, grab your pen and paper. There will be a quiz at the end. So, as you see, our team up here, it includes 3 of us that are here right now. We have Robin, Karen, and myself. We also have 2 other Karens. We have, I believe, the most Karens on a specific committee or team in the agency. So Karen is our New York City person. There's going to be some additional people coming on in the near future. Robin, myself, and the other 2 Karens who are listed there are our Long Island people. So we respond to the regional incidents that come up, and I'll get a little more into how we go through that. So our mission statement, I have to remember to click.
I can click for you.
Perfect. So we want to provide support, information, and referrals, if needed, to concerned staff and residents who have been involved in any kind of critical incident. And I'll explain a little more what a critical incident is. But this is something that...
I got it now.
Sure. So this is it's a comprehensive intervention system for managing traumatic events that occur within our programs. Things happen. We all work in the mental health field. We've all experienced traumatic events or even just events that have affected us in more ways than maybe we initially expected. So the agency started to develop this team through some research and some trainings to help out any staff or clients that have experienced anything traumatic or troubling or difficult. And we have a number of different interventions, including being preventative, providing education and assessment. We'll do individual and even group meetings, which we'll talk a little bit more about as well. And we will provide these services ideally within hours of a situation being notified. Worst case scenario, if we're not able to get to somebody in person right away, we'll contact them on the phone, we'll email, we'll text. We want to respond as quickly as we can so that we can provide that support as quickly as we can. So some quick definitions. A critical incident is any event that has the potential to create significant distress, can overwhelm coping mechanisms, can cause impairment in work or in your personal activities. More or less, it's a traumatic event. It's something that you experienced or something that the clients experienced. It can range from an individual overdosing in their apartment to the sad case of somebody passing away, or even larger incidents such as natural disasters. Again, something that many of us have experienced, or many of our clients or coworkers, colleagues have experienced. And even though there's no one-size-fits-all definition for what a critical incident is, there's still a general baseline we could work on. And if somebody's affected by something, for us, that's a critical incident. Critical incident stress, that's your normal reaction to the critical incident that you experience. Everybody goes through different emotions, different feelings, different behavioral reactions when you experience some kind of trauma. We'll talk a little more about that in one of our resources that we hand out, helping identify some of that for staff members. But understanding that your reaction is normal is something we also try to help people with, because you might find yourself feeling overwhelmed or upset and you don't know who to turn to or who to speak to. That's okay. We're here to help with that. We're here to help you identify the things that you can use that can help you, because in that moment of crisis or in that moment of coping with a trauma, you might not be thinking, oh, I have to go home, I'm going to read a book for an hour, and I'm going to watch a movie for 20 minutes. But we're here to help ground you, to help you find those resources that you can use, whether it's internally or externally, and understanding, again, that stress is normal, and we all experience it in different ways.
We also make sure we provide our contact information for any staff that feels after we come on site that they need additional support, so that they can get in contact with us at any time.
Yep. So just some very, very brief history of CISM. The International Critical Incident Stress Foundation, the ICISF, was founded in '89, and it's a nonprofit that's dedicated to spreading the CISM information and procedures and trainings and such. Roots of it can be found going back to the 70s, revolving around emergency services. As I'm sure many of you can understand, emergency service workers are dealing with a lot of trauma, a lot of physical, medical trauma. And that's where this kind of prompted that conversation for something like this to be developed. There's also some information about how it was used to support military veterans as well. I have some veterans in my family, so that makes absolute sense to me. They've been through quite a lot, and whether you've heard their stories or they've shared or they haven't shared, you know that they're another community that our agency does work with pretty extensively that can benefit from additional support. So it's nice to hear how this all initially developed. So now our history. In 2013, one of our sites experienced a significant critical incident, and there was a discussion of how the agency could respond to that for both the staff and the clients. So some of the directors across the agency started to research some different systems, some different programs and such, and came across the CISM program. So it was presented to our executive director, who's here in the audience, Ralph Fasano, and he was on board. He gave his full support, as did the agency, and it's something that really flourished once it took off in 2014, and it's been going ever since and growing. So as the CISM team in concern was developing and growing, we were providing presentations and trainings. We received contacts from outside agencies as well who had heard about what we were doing and were interested in finding out how they could tailor it to their own programs or their own agencies. We provided these external trainings to anybody who was interested, and we're still willing to do that if anyone does contact us. And as the agency grew, so did the need for expanding it. As we're developing more properties in Long Island, in the city, unfortunately, the reality is there's going to be an increase in incidents, whether they're small or large. So having a team that can respond to that and having a growing team that's all working from the same baseline really helps as we're starting to see concern expand. And that goes for really any agency that's expanding. The more people you have, the more support you have. So something that not everybody thinks about when they're applying for jobs or looking for whatever their career is going to be. You're not necessarily thinking that you're going to be experiencing these traumatic situations. When I was applying for jobs out of grad school, I wasn't thinking I was going to walk into a client who just overdosed or having to call 911 because somebody was having a medical emergency, or, again, worst case scenario, somebody's passed away on your watch. So when we're onboarding people and we're bringing new staff into the agency and we're trying to provide these trainings and the support, that's another thing we want to help normalize. Not that we want to normalize trauma, of course, but we want to understand that unfortunately things happen. And we have a support team here that's going to help our staff and our clients when those things happen. Again, as I said, as the agency grows, there's more risks that can happen. So expanding the team and having more people involved is always a positive. And a solid team can provide that support, empathy, an ear to listen to, or even just a shoulder to cry on. We've responded to events where people just want to talk about what they're going through. They experience something really, really difficult, and they want somebody to hear them, especially somebody who's in the field, who knows them, who's a colleague, who is working in similar programs or has other experiences like them. It's always helpful to know that you're not alone in this.
It's also important to note that we're not responding as QI or quality. We're responding as a support system. It's about normalizing those feelings and giving the staff the opportunity, to verbalize their concerns and just to be genuinely them, and bring any concerns or issues that they have to us, and so we can support them.
Mm-hmm. We don't want to come in as a team of directors or managers and have staff get nervous saying certain things to us. We want them to be open and honest about what they're going through. That's how we learn, too, as management of concern. That's how we learn as colleagues, as coworkers. If we know what's going on with the people we're working with, we know how we can help them better.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I got caught off.
So what happens when a critical incident occurs? So the regional program directors, Jim or Robin, will be notified, and then they will reach out to the respective team, or they'll reach out to all of us and see if there's a more general response we can give. The team will respond quickly. We have each other's phone numbers. We have email contacts. We're able to get in touch with each other very easily. And as soon as we are notified, we will respond to whatever program or staff or supervisors are looking for that support. We'll speak to individual staff members. We'll go on site. We could do group meetings, we could do individual meetings with the staff or clients. We really try to tailor it to what the program needs are, what the management at that program feels will be most beneficial.
We also reach out to the program directors before we go on site, just to figure out how they feel like we can best support their team.
Yep. That's okay. So again, like I said, we are encouraging staff to speak openly with us. As Karen had said, we're not here to scrutinize the event or what happened or who did what or who didn't do this or who called that. We're here to provide that support so that staff can talk to us, tell us what's going on. I'm feeling really upset about this. I was crying for an hour after this event happened, or I feel like I didn't do enough for this person. We're here to support them. We're here to make them feel that they're heard and to know that they have a team of people who are behind them, including the whole agency. We don't just represent ourselves. We obviously represent everybody across the agency. And fostering that connection and that ability to speak openly, we think, is incredibly important. We'll also, as I said, we'll provide some resources, such as information about stress management, mindfulness, understanding your body's chemical response. One big thing is in the mornings, your cortisol levels, your adrenaline levels might be a little bit higher than normal, so you might not feel that high level of stress if an incident happens in the morning. But then as the day goes on, your levels come down a little bit, and suddenly it's, oh, I just remembered what happened at 10 o'clock this morning, and it suddenly hits you in a wave. We're still available. As Karen said, we make ourselves available throughout the day. It's not just a one and done. We want to be there to support somebody before and after as much as we can. That's okay. So some of our goals, this is a critical interventions are a temporary but active and supportive entry into the life of individuals or groups during a period of distress. So it might be temporary, but we're trying to help people build skills and identify their own support systems as well. Something to take home with you. We'll give some paperwork that we'll give a couple examples of. even just talking about what external things people can do. Maybe you want to speak to family members that you haven't spoken to in some time, or maybe you're engaged in therapy. Maybe you set up another appointment, or maybe you haven't been engaged in therapy before. We can provide some resources on where you can look for some information about that. We provide that information and a sense of leadership, too. The point of the team, again, is to make sure that everybody feels that they are being supported and responded to, and knowing that there are people here that we're just as human as anybody responding to any traumatic event, but we're here to support you in that moment.
At the end, we also give the staff the opportunity to provide feedback about what else we could do differently. What else do you feel like is needed to provide support? You know, I think some of the things that have come up in the past is maybe the agency will consider paying for like a couple of sessions of therapy outside, and that's something the agency has been really open to.
Mm-hmm. We also, and it's also something you may not think about initially, but we try to help control rumors. People talk, things spread very quickly. We want to make sure that the right information is getting out there for anybody who overhears when a critical incident happens. It also helps with increasing morale and cohesion within the programs themselves. We're here for the program, we're here for the staff, we're here for the clients. We're all on the same team, whether we're in the city or we're on Long Island, whether we're in a community residence or a supported housing program. We all work together. We all have the same goals. We're all here to help everybody. And then, of course, restoring to adaptive functions. It's helping you get back to your day-to-day. It's going to be hard to focus on work for a bit after a traumatic event, or even your personal life. There's no denial of that, and we want to help you be able to cope and find yourself back at a place where you're feeling stable and comfortable. Even if it's just comfortable enough to reach out to us regularly, we still want to help people get back to that that stasis for themselves. We also will help mitigate the impact of the event and help reduce stress in the moment. If we can respond quickly, that's usually when we can help bring that stress down. I'm sorry, you had a question?
Yes.
Sure.
My question is, how do you control the rumors? Like, how do you dispel of things when it's with clients or tenants or staff, just to ensure that you're not also crossing boundaries of either HIPAA laws or employee policies and procedures?
Mm-hmm. I'm sure we could all answer that.
Well, I think it's open dialogue. You know, we're bringing it up. We're talking about what actually happened and how, depending on what the incident is, how we can support it. So I think a lot of times what happens is we don't talk about it. You know, when a major incident happens, there's maybe a briefing at the site, and then that's kind of the end of it. No, what we do is we sit down with all of the staff at the site, and we kind of open the floor. We talk about who we are, what our roles are throughout the our time at the agency, you know, but many of us have been program directors. We've been a part of these incidents, you know, so just letting staff know that we're here. Bring up your concerns. So I think it comes down to transparency and honesty, you know, and having staff.
And I just want to add, part of that is the outreach to the program prior to the CISM team responding. So understanding, the team needs to understand what happened. The team will look in the record to understand the client, understand the staff connected to that client. So the team needs to gain an understanding of the event, an accurate understanding of the event, what the impact is, and then the outreach to the program director, you know, and then the team goes in with the accurate information. And then, you know, because like Matt said, there could be, something could happen and then there's 5 different versions of it. The team knows the correct version, and the team will go in without violating HIPAA, but not giving specifics like that. But that's not the case. This did not happen, or there was no weapon, or whatever it may be. And the whole for program managers out there, the whole this just helps stabilize the whole program, keep staff in place, and keep them supported throughout. So a lot of that work is done prior.
Do you want to add about how it trickles down to tenants, though?
Yeah.
So, of course, as Jim alluded to, there's tenants that hear things too. They'll hear something, or they'll hear incorrect information. They'll ask you about it. It becomes a matter of refocusing them to the specific event that happened, as Robin and Karen had explained, explaining what we know and what had actually occurred, and helping them refocus a little bit so that they don't get too lost in things that aren't necessarily true or may not be relevant. And that can be difficult, certainly, but that comes with when we're meeting with these clients, whether it's individually or in a group setting, trying to set that tone that we're going to talk about what had happened and how it's affected you and try to keep away from things that we know weren't necessarily part of that event.
But we also open the floor for the tenants to ask any questions or concerns that they have, and that helps alleviate the rumors.
Absolutely. Okay. Might as well go to the next one. Okay. So we just included a couple of the resources that we hand out. They're very simple. They give people something to think about, though. This one is about what are your signs of stress. We have some different categories that we can talk through with the staff or the clients, whoever is interested in learning a little bit about this and helping identify their own feelings. We're here to help them with something like this. There are physical signs you could feel, like heart palpitations or panic attacks, anxious mood or depressed mood when you're just sitting alone and thinking about what had happened. You might find yourself more defensive or blaming others or blaming yourself. And even some mental signs like forgetfulness or confusion, or you're not as organized as you used to be. Everybody deals with stress in different ways. Everybody encounters different symptoms of stress, and one way of attacking that stress is knowing what it is, knowing what your body is doing, what your mind is doing, what your emotions are feeling, so that you can identify what's going to hopefully help you with that in the future. Which comes to the next resource that we have, which is 10 ways to become more resilient. It just goes through some examples of how somebody can work on coping with the stress that they're dealing with. Something like developing a strong social network. We all know how important having somebody in our lives that we can talk to is, or multiple people, or one person that you truly trust, or coworkers, colleagues, whoever you feel comfortable with. Having people in your life is important. Because that's people that you can speak to and vent to if you need to, including our team, of course. And sometimes you just need a perspective outside of work. Maybe your best friend of 10 years can tell you a little bit about how he dealt with a similar situation that you didn't even know he dealt with. Establishing goals, of course, is another thing that helps. When you have something defined, it's a lot easier to hit that goal rather than to keep something nebulous. I'm sure all of us who have done New Year's Eve resolutions know what that's like. But having something concrete and specific in mind really helps you focus on how you can de-stress or work out that stress and find something productive in the long run that's going to help you. And then nurturing yourself, it sort of speaks for itself, but we all forget this at times, and we want to make sure that we're spending, self-care, that we want to make sure we're spending time on ourselves and helping ourselves and finding things that work for ourselves. Because if you're not okay, it's harder to help other people. You want to make sure you're okay and that you know what works for you, because, again, everybody's different. Petting my dog and playing my guitar is my thing. That might not be yours. It might not be yours. There's a million things that could be done, but finding out what it is that works for you is the most important thing, and doing it. Want to end?
No, definitely agreed. I think one of the things that we end all of our sessions with is the importance of self-care and people taking care of themselves and paying attention to their body. One of the things that we kind of pass through, we skipped over, is fault. Like, no worries. It's like when we respond to different sites, what we've learned is like when we first, like, one of the reasons for CISM is to address the vicarious trauma that some of our staff and tenants they face on a daily when they respond to incidents. What we've begun to notice is, with responding to vicarious trauma and meeting with tenants and meeting with staff at, Norwood or McDougal or Surf, where we spent a lot of time is, staff have built these units, like teams, and I feel like it's come from more than vicarious trauma. It's now vicarious resilience of how they've come together and, been able to support one another. And I think one of the important things about CISM is we bring our staff together, we bring our tenants together. We also encourage open, honest dialogue. And when you have that open, honest dialogue, it allows us to kind of address the root of some of the concerns of the problems. And, one of the great things is that we're able to bring it back to Robin and Jim that kind of trickles up to Ralph, where they're clear about our needs. And, I think all of the things that we've kind of brought up, whether it's CISM, DEI, or, the employee recognition, I think is super important, and it all comes down to how we best support our staff and just all that we do. I'm giving this up and I'm done.
The thing to take away at the bottom of the slide, self-care is not about self-indulgence, it's self-preservation. That's something to keep in mind. It really is. It's okay to take care of yourself when you need to.
And
right.
everybody's self-care looks different.
Yes, very much so.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Matt and Karen. Karen, I thought we were going to hear more from you.
I don't talk publicly. So Matt is my partner in crime, and we work together.
So the CISM thing is probably something that you can easily replicate, and you may be already doing stuff like this in your own agencies. That training program that we talked about, 2 to 3 days of training, there are probably staff in your agencies that are interested in this work, that want to support their co-workers, that may want to take that training and learn more about it. So it's affordable, it's universal, and an opportunity to do things differently. So are there any questions about the CISM piece or anything else that we've covered today? Yeah.
It's not really a question, but when you guys were talking, it just took me back to a session that we had at our agency with the case managers, a couple of the case managers and supportive housing, residential. We had a meeting, a small meeting with about 10 of us, in the supportive housing complex where we work at, off-site, where we all sat in a circle and we really vibed with each other. Because we're a team. We're all a team. And we all here for one thing and one thing alone, and that's to win. We want to win, and we want the clients and the tenants to win too. So I'm just saying that may be an idea or a suggestion that, people that are listening, you might want to incorporate, because not only did that little session with us get us closer with each other, it made working much more profitable and easier, because we already have enough negative entities around us already. Not to mention we have our own personal issues to deal with. So connecting, the more we can connect with the people that we work with on a daily basis, the better off we'll be, and the closer we'll become, and the more stress we can get off of our shoulders.
I love it.
Agreed.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much for that. Yeah.
Yeah. I like the way you said outside of work, because the CISM team, one of the program directors years back, went outside of work and took her team, and we went as a team and did a self-care workshop for them outside of work, and that was a great connection for that team. So you're spot on.
There's a power in a circle too, right? Rearranging the seats and facing each other and learning from each other. It can be radical. Great. Well, we hope this has been a good kickoff session for you today, and let's thank our panelists. We're finishing a few minutes early, but lunch is at noon, I believe, back on 6, and enjoy yourselves. Thank you so much.
Have a great day.
Thank you, everybody.
Great day.